If you were to think about what youth ministry will look like, tell us what you think it could look like 10 years from now. Maybe hopeful or maybe like dreadful, either way.
Yeah, no, it's hopeful, but it's different, right? So I don't know. I mean, the crystal ball, who knows what that is? You guys have better ideas probably. I think that it will be probably less of a programmatic thing that happens within congregations. Not that congregations won't be involved, but I think it'll wind up being more embedded in other ministries in the congregations. It'll be less of a separate thing. That's both good and bad, right?
Yeah.
In some ways it's good because it will be more integrated into the fabric of the mission of the church. In some ways it's bad because it also means that it will happen outside of churches in community settings where, you know, people come together in ways. Just because the church itself is going to look so different in 10 years that we're not going to recognize the program model that we have right now.
You are like freaking some people out right now. They're going, it's going to look that different in 10 years.
Yeah.
And there's some people that are like, my church has not changed in 100 years. There's no way that that's going to happen.
Your church is the exception, obviously.
Right now, if you were to identify maybe one or two things that you think need to change about youth ministry right now, what would those be?
Well, actually, I do think that one of the things that probably needs to change is it needs to be less programmatic. So in that way, this is an opportunity. The changes that we're facing, a lot of it's going to be driven by money.
Yeah.
And because of that, this is my hunch, and I'm banking a lot on this because I'm doing some work in this right now. But I think it's going to be a lot more entrepreneurial. I think we're going to be forced to figure out ways to do entrepreneurial ministry, and I think that will help youth ministry because it will make young people agents of ministry and not just objects of it.
And you're starting to do some more work with social entrepreneurship within the church. Can you share with people what that looks like and how you began doing that? And
well, I began doing it because I was desperate, right? I was sick of churches saying no to everything. And so, you know, I mean, the people with the best ideas in ministry are youth ministers, but it's a true story. But the thing is, we're in systems that are structured for us not to try new things. And it's in our DNA to do exactly the opposite. So one of the things that Mark DeVries and I have, a lot of you know Mark DeVries, but we've committed to working together on this, is to just try to come alongside people who are trying to do entrepreneurial ministry in churches and maybe as nonprofits and so on as well, but to figure out ways that churches can say yes as opposed to no, and to allow you to figure out funding streams and so on so people aren't scared of what you're doing. Don't do it alone. If you're placed in a church by yourself, get a posse of people around you that are not in your church. Don't ever blindside your senior pastor, ever. Senior pastors hate to be surprised. Over communicate, and make your senior pastor's job easier, and you will have a job for life. Make your senior pastor's job harder, and you will have a short tenure. And be smart about the practical things, things like structure and money and that sort of stuff. You're responsible for managing a small organization, no matter how small your church is. You can't be an idiot about that stuff. So just because we're humanities geeks and we, don't like to mess with temporal things like numbers, you can't sink the church while you're at it. It won't help your young people if there's no church to come back to when they're grown.
What do you want to say to us that have students of our own in youth ministry? What are some things that we as parents should be aware of?
This is like the most nerve-wracking question, like parenting advice.
We can just skip it if you want.
I totally don't have this down, right? My children will tell you I do not have this down. So here's my hunch. As a parent, I'm going to speak for myself. I totally screw this up regularly. Surround your kids with other faithful adults, so that you are not the only adult of faith that they know.
Yeah.
When I would go on mission trips, my son would complain that I was going along, and I would say, listen, honey, I'm not going for you. Other people's parents are going for you. I'm going for somebody else's kid.
Yeah.
So whether he bought that or not, I don't know, but...
So how'd you get started in youth ministry anyway? I don't know the beginning story there.
Payback. I mean, I was the beneficiary of amazing youth pastors. I went to a little podunk church that didn't have much of a youth ministry program, and so I got involved in camps and conferences and that sort of stuff. And they had incredible volunteers that worked with these and, believed in us beyond all reason. And, I'm sure, I don't know that I'm seeing people here, but there's probably people here that went through this with me. And, we're in ministry today because of those people. They just, without having any reason to believe that we would be good leaders, they threw us up there and say, here, lead the church, go,
Yeah. So let's say that there's some youth leaders out here that have just huge dreams. Whether it's for their own youth ministry, entrepreneurial ministries beyond, big dreams but little support. What's maybe a word of advice, a prayer that you have for them as they're launching forward?
Don't quit. This is a phrase I'm borrowing from Mark, but his theory is that people succeed in ministry, especially entrepreneurial ministry, because they don't quit as soon as everybody else. Any normal person would have quit by now, but hang in there. It gets better.